Sweden is once considered a very backward country, especially during the early 19th century. This was due to the religious oppression which existed in the region at that time. The situation was better in countries such as Denmark, USA, and the UK. The then economy of Sweden was ruled by guilds and restrictions which were truly medieval. People were not at all happy with the state of the country then. A lot of Swedish nationals began migrating to countries such as the USA and neighboring Denmark. This led to a public worry that the country would be completely depopulated. And then came Johann August Gripenstedt. He was the person who made Sweden a liberalism country. How was liberalism introduced in Sweden? By a series of speeches in the parliament, he garnered enough support and promoted the idea that wealth can truly be accumulated through liberalism. The people were moved and hence, Sweden moves towards becoming a liberal state. The following changes were brought into effect. Number 1. The system of a guild was abolished forever and anyone could start any business of their choice. Number 2. The free form of trade was on the rise. People could trade within the city and if they wish, trade between cities. This was a sort of trade freedom which never existed in Sweden before. Number 3. Taxes were very meager in comparison to other countries. Number 4. The traditional political system was earlier based on 4 estates such as nobles, clergy, burghers, and yeomen. This was then replaced by a system which was bicameral. Such changes were never anticipated in the Swedish society. It was hard to believe at first, but people got used to it with time. With a system of free enterprise in place, Sweden had the base to create and harbor some of the world's biggest companies. Sweden became a place where doing business was more of a pleasure than a pain. Emphasis on development. The state government began paying a lot of emphasis on developing the infrastructure of the region as well. This was in the form of good roads, sanitation facilities, education infrastructure, etc. To achieve this, they needed capital which was in the form of loans borrowed from neighboring states. The money was duly spent on improving the infrastructure of Sweden. Things were pretty much going fine. Sweden began to heavily industrialize in the mid-19th century. While a host of European nations were moving way ahead in the global average GDP per capita, Sweden managed to catch up with the United Kingdom by the early 1950s. This led to it becoming marginally richer than its neighboring states. However, by the 1980s, Sweden had overtaken the United Kingdom and cemented itself as one of the richest nations in the world. Despite it hitting a few economic downfalls along the way, it has managed to bounce back and return even stronger than ever. Absence from major wars. While the world major nations were at loggerheads with each other during the World War I and World War II, Sweden opted to sit out both the wars. While other nations were sending their military arsenal and weapons, Sweden was busy developing its surroundings. The money it earned was utilized to pay off its debts while its neighbors were busy destroying each other. The base for a healthy and sustainable future was set. With no distractions such as political unrest, wars, etc., Sweden could concentrate its efforts towards innovations, inventions, along with concentrating on the overall development of the nation. Swedish economy. Sweden has gotten habitual to enjoying a high and stable standard of living despite it becoming at a very high price to individual taxpayers. Sweden is often considered as one of the equitable societies in the world, with a Gini rating of close to about 25. A Gini index is an index which measures the economic equality of a nation. A 0 in the index represents perfect equality, and a cent% represents perfect inequality. The index rating indicates that Sweden has no extremes of wealth and poverty in the country. Both coexist in harmony with each other, maintaining a perfect balance. Low taxation on personal income, coupled with a low rate of executive compensation, has contributed towards maintaining a healthy and equally distributed society. Sweden is very much an export-oriented country. The majority of its current wealth comes from businesses in the field of timber, hydropower, and iron ore. The country is home to some of the biggest companies in the world. Some of these companies are H&M, IKEA, Ericsson, Skype, etc., amongst a host of other super companies in the region. Amongst 90% of Sweden's resources and companies are under privatized ownership, while about 5% is under the control of state government. The rest of the 5% is operating as consumer operatives. Sweden's wealth distribution. The wealth distribution in Sweden is a cause for concern. It has been reported that almost 10% of the total population control close to 70% of the country's wealth. This means that the rich are getting even richer. However, unlike other countries, the middle class enjoy a high standard of living. This is all down to the policies put forth by the state government. Education is free of cost along with a host of other facilities provided by the government. Health insurance is free, and every citizen is entitled to an exciting pension scheme post-retirement. Because of these reasons, Sweden boasts one of the highest GDP per capita in the world. It is a model which modern-day nations are urged to follow. Sweden, home of the mega-rich. Sweden has also worked towards diversifying its economy. Sweden has been ranked as the 7th most competitive country in the world to do business. Such a free and tension-free business environment is a perfect place for companies to flourish. The biggest of firms are flourishing, and their owners are becoming even the richer. According to reports, there are more than 25 billionaires in Sweden, which is even more astounding that it is a country of close to about only 9 million people. Sweden continues to be one of the richest countries in the world. It's not just wealth that makes it rich, but it's the happiness of its citizens as well. This is a modern-day model of how countries should actually function. Paying more attention to overall national development rather than focusing on political tensions is the key to a stable and rich economy.